What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be comparing two of the most popular budget bikes, in my opinion, as far as full suspensions. And this is going to be a great comparison because the more I've learned about bikes, the more I can understand why people pay certain prices for certain things and why they're willing to give up certain aspects of bikes over others. And this is a perfect example. So these are two bikes that if you're just getting into mountain biking and want to go the full suspension route but don't want to spend a ton of money, these are two great options that you guys probably already heard of or you already purchased or you're interested in. So hopefully this video will help you out with whatever you intend on doing in the future when it comes to picking out a bike. Now, I'm not going to dive super deep into the tech specs, but I am going to touch on a lot of points that I think are major when it comes to picking out a bike, and I'm gonna just compare which bike has what, which bike doesn't, and just all the big things that majority of people care about when they're trying to pick out a bike. As you can see, I've upgraded my Polygon Siskui D6, but I'm just gonna compare them as far as stock form. I haven't upgraded anything really but the tires and the fork. So I can still give you guys a pretty good comparison when it comes to price difference. This Polygon Siskui D6, when I got it, was retailing at $1,500, and the Giant Stance is retailing at $1,800. First, on the Polygon Siskui D6, you got the 1x10 drivetrain. It makes a difference in my opinion. I'd rather have the 1x12, but I know a lot of you guys say 1x10 is enough. I just think the 1x12 just gives you that little bit of extra range when you're trying to pedal up a hill. It don't affect me as much going down, but going up, that 1x10 I really start to notice, and that's because of my terrain. I'm in Colorado, so there's a ton of climbing, but depending on where you live, you probably won't need as many. Now we go over to the Giant Stance, and you can see this cassette is huge. It's a lot bigger than the Polygon Siskui D6, a bigger range of gears, and gives you that little bit of extra climbing ability. When it comes to the rear, as far as the cassette, the drivetrain, I give it to the Giant Stance. All right, and we stay in the rear, and this is where it gets interesting. The Polygon Siskui D6 has a through axle in the rear, which gives for a better ride, and it gives you a stiffer ride in the rear, and it's just more modern, especially with the way mountain bikes are made these days. You definitely want a through axle in the rear. Now moving back to the Giant Stance, you got a quick release in the rear, and that's definitely not the standard you want on a full suspension mountain bike. It's pros and cons to price points like this, but this is a major drawback for a lot of people, is having that quick release in the rear. So while it has the 1x12 drivetrain, that quick release is holding it back for sure. Both bikes are running similar derailleurs and everything, so I won't jump into that. Also, you guys feel free to correct me or add in the comments if I'm missing something, because you guys know I'm not a huge tech person and I'm learning as I go, and I love when you guys help me out and give feedback, so feel free to chime in if I'm missing anything or I'm leaving anything out. Now we move to the seat, and this is where the Polygon Siskui D6 shines also, because on this bike you get a dropper post. For a lot of people, dropper posts are make or break for a bike. So to be able to get this bike that comes with the dropper post is a huge advantage. Then we move over to the Giant Stance, no dropper post. It's not even a quick release. You gotta actually unscrew this to be able to let the seat up and down. So I don't even know if that would even be a good thing. Let me know. Maybe they didn't want to put a quick release on a full suspension mountain bike. They just assumed that you're gonna throw a dropper on it, but I mean, that's not convenient at all. So you don't have a dropper or a quick release seat. That's what you get when you shopping around at these price points. All right, now let's look at the rear shock. This is 120 in the rear. This is an X Fusion shock, and it does have a lockout on this, so that's super convenient right there to have that, to give you that extra little climbing ability if you want to stiffen things up. But this shock actually runs pretty stiff. So that's what I've noticed riding with this thing. It's stiff already, so I don't know if that's the way you guys like it or not, but if you do end up getting this bike, just know that the rear shock, it runs stiff, even with the lockout wide open. Now for the Giant stance, it's got the Radon Suntour rear shock, and if I'm not mistaken, this is running 120 in the rear also, and it doesn't have a lockout. So you have a lockout on the Polygon Siskui D6, but no lockout on the Giant stance. Not super familiar with this shock, but I'm sure at this price point, they probably run pretty similar. I mean, I couldn't guess it would run a little firmer than the Polygon Siskui D6, because that shock is it's a little firm for a rear shock, but I'm sure this is a little softer than that. All right, now we're gonna go to the tires, and I'm gonna just go over that super quick. The Giant stance tires are way better than the stock Polygon Siskui D6 tires, so don't even take that into consideration. The stance tires are way better. Now let's look at the fork. As you can see, I upgraded my fork on the Polygon Siskui D6. So let's look at the stock fork that was on here. Here's the fork that came stock on the bike, the Suntour XCR 120 millimeter fork. It did its job, but I don't recommend it. I recommend taking it off as fast as you can and upgrading it if possible. But if you need it to last for a while and you don't really want to spend the money, it'll definitely do the job, don't get me wrong. Now this fork is not an air fork, so you can't adjust it based on the weight, which is a downside to this fork, but you can lock and unlock the fork. And here's the Giant stance fork. I can just look at this and tell it will perform a lot better. It's also 130 millimeters of travel, so you do get 10 extra millimeters over the Polygon Siskui D6. This is a Giant branded fork. It's the Giant crest. And the stanchions actually look pretty stout on here. I'm not sure how many millimeters, but you do get the air adjustment on here where you can adjust it to your weight and how specific you want the pressure to be. And you do have the lock and unlock switch right here. So this fork, in my opinion, just from looking at it, is way better than what comes stock on the Polygon Siskui D6. We can go over the brakes really quick. These are Shimano brakes. I do think these brakes are pretty good for what you get at this price point and the kind of riding style this bike is meant for. Now the Giant stance is running Tektro brakes, and I do think the Shimanos are better. I haven't actually used these brakes before, but if I had to guess, I would go with the Shimanos. But at this price point, any kind of brakes they put on here, I think they'll work well for what the bike is intended for. So I don't think the brakes are a huge difference maker when it comes to choosing which bike you want. All right guys, so I just ran over all the important parts in my opinion, but there's still one more left. And this could be the make or break decision for a lot of you guys. This is the one that I had to find out the hard way, but now let's look at the major difference between these bikes in my opinion. So when I was putting this new fork on my Polygon Siskui D6, I thought just because the head tube was tapered, that's all I needed. But come to find out, it wasn't a boost hub up front. So you need the boost hub to be able to upgrade to a modern fork, which is 15 to 110 spacing. And I had to find that out the hard way. So it caused the whole situation. I had to order an adapter kit to convert it to boost spacing, and I had to buy a new rotor to fit the bolts. So that's a huge disadvantage for this bike if you guys want to upgrade the fork. So that's something that I had to learn the hard way. Now with the Giant stance on the other hand, you do get 15 to 110 boost spacing, and you get the tapered head tube. So this bike is ready to go if you want to upgrade the fork. But it seems like it already has a decent fork on here, so you might not need to upgrade it unless you just want to get something more rowdy and something more aggressive, or maybe add some millimeters on there or whatever. But you do get that modern boost spacing on here, which is a huge advantage when it comes to upgrading the bike. All right guys, so I think I covered everything as far as the major components on each bike, comparing the two, and now it's time for you guys to decide, do you think this is a $300 difference between the two? And considering the prices between $300, which one would you buy? The Polygon Siskui D6 or the Giant stance? Me, I don't know which one I would buy. Especially now after learning about bikes and learning all the different components, I kind of don't know, because not having the through axle in the rear, but having boot spacing in the front is, that's tough. But having the rear through axle on the Polygon Siskui D6, but no boot spacing up front, it's just tough all around. I don't know. So let me know down below, what would you guys do? Which one would you choose and why? But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I tried to explain it the best way I can. I'm not the best at the spec stuff, but I'm learning and I'm trying. I really appreciate you guys watching the video. Make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next video.